420 somewhere, and right now that somewhere is right here. So hello and welcome to the Cannabist Show. I'm producer Vince, and here's your host, Ricardo Baca.
Vince. Hey, producer Vince. Thanks for that, man. And to everybody joining us today, welcome to the Cannabist Show, where we talk about all things weed.
All things.
That is the serious marijuana news and the not always serious fun stuff as well. In fact, if you pop onto the site right now, thecannabist.co, you can read stories about more marijuana recalls.
And more stories about them.
About Hawaii naming its first medical marijuana dispensary owners.
Sorry, Woody.
And legalization news from Vermont, Alaska, Washington State, and elsewhere.
So many places, more and more and more and more.
Producer Vince, you seem like you're lifted, man. How you doing?
Oh, you know, caffeinated. I'm going to be very specific about that one. Caffeinated this week, but feeling really great, man. I mean, it's another Tuesday night. It's getting late here in the Denver Post newsroom. Everybody's running around on deadline, and we're in here talking pot. How are you, Ricardo?
Dude, it's been mania. I mean, the amount of news coming out of the Colorado State Legislature alone has just been, what the hell? How are we even supposed to keep up with this? We're doing our best, but then the news everywhere else, we're doing our best and trying to pick and choose what we think our readers and viewers and listeners are most interested in. So, you know, let's get around to it, Vince. Are you ready for the week in weed?
I am ready for the week in weed, but first I'm going to tell everybody how to keep up with all that news coming out of the Colorado legislature with a little humble brag and small plug. Joey Bunch, politics writer, him and I have been doing another show every week called Joey Splains, where you can actually follow along what the hell's going on over the State House in terms that you and I can actually understand. But for now, let's get into the week in weed, dude.
and for those who couldn't quite pick up on that, it's Joey _splains. So,
Splains.
And that is hashtag Joey Splains. We're starting this week in weed events in the U.S., where pharmacy giant Walgreens is making headlines by taking a measured and reasonable approach to medical marijuana. So get this, in a recent blog, a Walgreens employee who is also a resident at the University of Illinois College of Pharmacy wrote about cannabis stimulating appetite and treating pain, epileptic seizures, nausea, and possibly psychosis.
And all of those things are true. And we've reported on each and every one of those stories at The Cannabist. But this is why the Walgreens blog is a big deal. Walgreens operates more than 8,000 stores in all 50 states.
Well, that and those in the traditional medical profession aren't exactly known for their openness to the concept of cannabis as a medical treatment. You know, sure, some medical doctors recognize the potential of marijuana, and that number is increasing daily as we know. But when I'm calling around to Colorado hospitals and emergency rooms seeking comment for a story that I'm working on deadline, I'll still get a quote, we can't talk about this on the record, from many medical professionals all the time, even in Colorado, even in Washington.
And here's someone who would be quoted on the record. Here's a snippet of the Walgreens blog in question. Quote, research has shown marijuana provides pain relief in ways traditional pain medicines don't. Medical marijuana can improve appetite and relieve nausea in those who have cancer, and it may relieve symptoms such as muscle stiffness in people who have MS. See? Straightforward and sane. And that definitely signals a sea change that this S&P 500 company is talking about weed so plainly and factually.
It's fascinating, dude. But elsewhere in the weekend weed events, we are watching a major effort in one of Colorado's largest cities to stop recreational pot sales. Vince, who is behind this latest effort to stop Colorado marijuana?
Ricardo, who were we just talking about? It's doctors and hospitals. See, we weren't exaggerating the significance of that Walgreens blog. Medical providers are not on board with this whole legalization thing.
At least most of them are not. You know, these doctors and hospitals in Pueblo, Colorado, which is the state's 9th largest city and a legitimate cannabis hotspot right now, they joined a petition drive started by Citizens for a Healthy Pueblo. And the petition says the city has been harmed by the rapid proliferation of pot shops shops and commercial grows. In fact, one of the medical directors of a newborn intensive care unit at a Pueblo hospital, he says he's seen, quote, a dramatic increase in babies who test positive for marijuana, end quote. But a pediatrician at Children's Hospital of Colorado said she has seen an increase in such cases anecdotally, but that we're lacking overall research.
Lacking overall research is a refrain in this industry. A Pueblo emergency room doctor told us that she meets someone on every shift who came to Colorado for the legal cannabis, even though they don't have jobs or homes or money. She says, quote, "This is a huge social experiment and we've failed."
You know, that's what she said, and we will keep you up to date on the petition's progress. But this situation clearly illustrates the medical profession's complicated relationship with marijuana, which is probably an understatement. While we're lacking research, what little we have says that pregnant women probably shouldn't be getting high, nor should mothers who are breastfeeding. Weed is not good for your baby's brain. For the developing brain, some people say through 18, through 21. Some people say through 25, but that's what we're looking at. But really, what's the answer to these doctors' concerns? Is it banning the recreational sales altogether, or is it education?
Well, obviously it's banning. Banning substances means that nobody anywhere will ever use them. That's why before, 16 months ago, when I moved to Colorado, I had never in my entire life consumed cannabis, because everywhere that I lived previously, it was banned.
Of course. No.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You're
Education,
a newbie.
Ricardo.
You're a newbie. It's all good.
Brand new. It's way cheaper on the DL, you know? That tolerance isn't very high.
All right, Vince. It is time to bring out our first guest, who is using his more than 40 years of experience in the marketing industry at his cannabis edibles company, which is one of Washington State's largest and coming soon to Colorado. It's my pleasure to welcome zootologist Patrick Devlin to the Cannabist Show.
Yeah.
Hey, Patrick.
Hello, Carlo. Nice to meet you.
Hey, nice to meet you too.
Yeah.
Welcome to Denver.
Well, thank you very much. It's a beautiful city.
Yeah, you know it is. Absolutely. I'm guessing you hail from Seattle or somewhere there around?
Yeah, Seattle, the Pacific Northwest, Portland as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Patrick, you know how we start every interview on the show. It is sativa or indica.
I'd go with sativa. I like that buzz of activity. I like to be engaged with what I'm doing. I think it's a great strain. If you've got something to do around the house that may be a little bit boring, you want a little bit non-boring activities going on, a little bit of sativa is a nice complement to what you've got going on.
Like pulling weeds or doing laundry.
Cleaning, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I just like the buzz, the like a racy sativa. It sets off something in your brain. It's just a nice active buzz. Whether
it is.
I want to go on a walk, I want to go on a run, or I want to spend 2 hours in the yard.
Yeah, which is really interesting because a lot of people have the impression that marijuana just is kind of like a couch potato. You get stoned and you're laying out, but people don't realize that it's a real good complement to heightening those sensory activities that you got. So everything kind of appears new, fresh, that kind of thing. That's what a sativa is good for.
Absolutely, man. I agree.
Yeah.
So Patrick, welcome to Denver. I've heard about Zoots, which is your brand of edibles that you produce with your brothers and your family. It's very exciting. They come highly recommended from some of my freelancers and friends in Washington. But you guys are bringing this to Colorado. Is this your first state out of Washington? And also tell us about the rollout. When can we expect to see these in stores?
Well, we hope to see them in stores possibly as early as next week. There are some production glitches that you have to get through, but we have the production plant all completed, and we're really excited about being in Denver and Colorado as a whole. And one of the reasons that we wanted to really target Colorado to begin with is because of the education of the consumer in Colorado. As you know, Washington and Colorado basically legalized at the same time.
Absolutely.
But Colorado also had a leg up on kind of exposure of the product to a broader audience. And so there's a real sophisticated view of marijuana and marijuana products in Colorado. And you know, it's like that old saying, you know, New York, New York, if I can make it there, I can make it anywhere. Well, we're coming here to Colorado, and we're going to give it our best shot.
Oh, wow. So you're a ganjapreneur coming out of Washington State. Is Colorado that New York equivalent in that example?
I think you've made a good comment right there. If you take a look in the national press, where the center of the universe seems to be in marijuana products is Colorado.
Oh, fascinating. Yeah. Give me an idea of what Zoots looks like. Are you guys more about chocolates than candies, savories than sweets, all of it?
We have a very unique set of products. We have some standard products that we have. We specialize in low dose, giving people the sense of control, the sense of safety, the sense of trust that what they're going to get over and over again is the same experience.
Sure.
So we have a lozenge or a candy that's 5 milligrams, which is a nice little complement to the end of the evening. We also have a really unique product that is a concentrate, much like a tincture, but not a tincture. We take the marijuana plant and we distill out the cannabinoids from it, and then we blend it with natural ingredients. Comes in a 100 milligram bottle. It's got a child-resistant measuring cap, so you can measure out precisely 5 milligrams, exactly what you want. Mix it with water, a tea, or the scotch that we have in our glass.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Johnny Carson, that's what he did.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, that's a unique product. We have another product we call a Blast, which is an energy drink, either 10 or 30 milligrams of THC mixed with caffeine. So you get that kind of initial buzz that gets people thinking that there's something going on before the cannabis starts to kick in.
Well, what you guys do has so much intention behind it. I like that you and your brothers have different backgrounds and you can bring those to this space and to this product line. But in your opinion, especially since this has become a family business, what is the key to making a great edible? You know, if you were to pick one element of making a great marijuana product, what is that? Without question, it's the extract. My brother Mike, who has over 35 years in food processing expertise in the executive level of managing plants and managing product development. He was in charge of developing our extract process, which we have trademarked. It's a cypress extraction system. So it's basically an alcohol-based extraction system that makes an extract that's very, very smooth, starting with a very, very cool product in the raw material, the marijuana, and then super cooling the alcohol to start a process that goes through that gives an extract that actually there can be no taste to it at all in the edible. No marijuana taste.
No marijuana taste, but very, very, they're delicious. We've got a gluten-free brownie that people will, absolutely love. But we decided that we actually wanted to put some marijuana flavor in it. We don't go all the way to the flavorist for a couple of reasons. Number one, we believe that from a responsibility aspect, people should know that they're eating something with marijuana in it.
Aside from the packaging, it's a good reminder when you bite into it and you're like, oh yeah, this isn't a brownie, it's a weed brownie.
It's a weed brownie. And how many times, we've all had experiences where you go to a party and someone's laid out some brownies, they don't tell you what's going on, and then all of a sudden you've overconsumed and you get a maureened out experience.
Right, and nobody wants to be there, nobody wants to read about it in the New York Times.
Exactly. So we feel it's a part of social responsibility.
Interesting. I would agree that the extraction is probably the single most important part about making an edible. Let's talk a little bit more about that process though, because it's not butane, it's not CO2, it's not ice water hash. You guys are using alcohol to extract, right?
Right, ethanol. So it's an ethanol extraction process, which really goes back. It's kind of an old school process. But from a food processing perspective, it's really how food processing is done. If you take a look at some kind of extract, a mint extract or any kind of extract, they'll use an alcohol process to extract out the different oils in that plant to be able to add to a baking ingredient. It makes it very easy to mix, so you're able to get into homogenization to a much greater degree than some of the other extract processes.
I look forward to testing and trying out your products.
Wonderful. We'll certainly get some to you.
Yeah. You're going to be sold medically and recreationally, or one or the other? Or?
We're going to start out recreationally,
Okay.
which I think we actually should rename that. And I
Sure.
think we
You're
should.
not alone.
I think we should name that. People who believe marijuana should be regulated like alcohol.
Sure.
We go through recreational marijuana or adult use, and neither of those really hit too well. But we really need to think about this in a broader term.
Mm-hmm.
So,
language is obviously very central to what we do at the Cannabist and here at the Denver Post. Late 2013, I had many meetings with the editor of the paper as well as our copy chief, just talking very intentionally about, do we call it marijuana, cannabis? Do we use weed? Do we talk about pot? And also recreational versus retail versus adult use. We ended up going with, this is how our state ended up regulating this as recreational marijuana. And we will use retail on second reference. We will use cannabis, of course, all the time, as it's the most proper name. But that's how we kind of went with how we chose to do it. This is the nomenclature of the state.
It is, and I think that's very wise. There's no doubt about it. But remember at the very beginning when they said, don't use the word marijuana, don't call it cannabis.
Oh yeah.
Well,
still happening.
It's still happening, and I understand that because there's a broader political goal to achieve, but we really need to get to a point, and everybody needs to get to a point where we can just embrace this as a natural product, which it is, that has benefits on multiple levels. And the way you do that is to be honest about it. And you approach it in a very, very honest way. With Zoots, we approach it as an intoxicant. We will come out with products that have a medicinal value, we believe, but it's a belief, on our part. The research doesn't support it right now, but we believe in giving people choice. But on the recreational side of it, we really embrace it as an intoxicant and think it's a good one.
I'm with you. I think it is a pretty good intoxicant.
and also, it can be a good trade-off for alcohol. And we all know that alcohol can be destructive in people's lives. Can marijuana? Possibly. But the risks are much lower with marijuana than they are with alcohol.
Absolutely. I'm actually writing a book right now, and one of the chapters talks about my own history with intoxicants over the course of my life, and how largely it's been alcohol. It's been what's been available and socially acceptable. But in the last couple of years, how that has really switched, and I'm okay with it. I've probably cut my alcohol consumption in the last 3 years by about 2/3. I'm not here to demonize alcohol. I still enjoy it, but I just drink a lot less than I do now because there are alternatives. There
are alternatives. I'm the same way. I've got Irish descent. I always used to blame it on my Irish genes, right? But I was a 3 cocktail a night guy. Basically almost 7 days a week. But since I've started to trade that off, there are times where I'm not drinking at all during the week, and I don't have that urge or anything like that. So, and obviously I'm not a therapist or a doctor or can make any statements about that. But we've all had direct experiences of where the plant itself has benefits. We just have to get to where it's accepted.
Yeah, it's all a personal belief, right?
Yeah, it really is.
Why I said earlier, I feel okay about making this switch, switching one for the other, and using whichever one makes sense for that particular situation.
Yeah, that's true, and we all know you're not going to die from an overdose of cannabis. Impossible. It doesn't happen.
Even the federal government of the United States knows that.
That's right.
It's true, dude. I've tried.
Producer Vince.
Haven't we all at one time?
Well, Patrick, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, absolutely.
I look forward to chatting with you more here in just a few minutes. But first, I'm going to throw to our next segment where we go to our very own teacher of THC, Professor Pat, for this week's entry in the new Cannabist Lexicon.
Jelly hash, a mixture of water hash and hash oil. Jelly hash is known for being very potent due to the combination of 2 distinct types of extract being consumed at once. To make jelly hash, combine hash oil and water hash with a slight amount of heat. then whip it together until it's mostly homogeneous. Some users then elect to press it and let it dry into a hard puck, as it tends to burn longer that way. To hear that in a sentence, I first heard about jelly hash back in 2004 or so on the forums when people were talking about smoking it with Selma in Amsterdam.
All right, thank you for that, Professor Pat. On to our next guest, who is also making his first appearance on the show. He is the Director of Hemp Affairs at the National Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, and it's my pleasure to welcome Eric Carlson to the Cannabist Show.
Hey, Ricardo, thank you so much for having me.
Hey, my pleasure.
Good to be here.
Thanks for joining us. I like your shirt.
Had to represent Cannabist, Cannabis Republic here. So
people can buy that very shirt at thecannabist.co/store.
Exactly.
Oh man, I came up with that idea. Do you like it?
Well, it started in Colorado and it's soon becoming a national brand, right? So this obviously is the California flag, and that's obviously a big market. So maybe we'll start seeing more East Coast logos here soon enough, right?
I think there's a very good chance of that.
Yeah.
Eric, you heard the question that I already asked Patrick: sativa or indica?
Indicas.
Okay.
Indicas. I'm very busy during the day, so I very much like to relax at night, feel that indica go from the head to the toes, kind of soothe out the body aches and the stress from the day, and just kind of let it mellow, let it ride.
I like it. You said something interesting there, though, from the head to the toes. Is that how a strong indica hits you? I'm curious.
You know, for me, I'm sure it's different with every person. I love that feeling. You know, sativas have that that uplifting and sometimes can be racy at times.
That's true.
And getting into intense conversations and thinking about maybe 100 different things. My fiance is much better at that. I've learned that women can multitask in their thoughts a lot more. Me, I like to be very direct and forward. So I just like that great feeling, that body relaxation. So
it's funny. That's kind of my tell that I know that a nice body high just set in is my toes get claustrophobic, and I always find myself like wanting to kick off my shoes and take off my socks. And for a while, that was the working title of my book, because I'm like, that's such a weird tell, having your toes get claustrophobic. But I like it. It does kind of start at the bottom and move up for me.
Well, and the kicker is, because I'm a hemp guy, what about smoking a CBD hemp bud? Some people are calling it no-bacco. I know there's a company in Colorado that's becoming a trade name. But what about being able to smoke a bud that looks, smells, tastes like marijuana, provides a bodily effect without any psychoactive high happening?
I know a couple friends who do it, and sometimes they do it at the end of the night after a couple Red Bull vodkas, and it's a nice bring me down into bed. I don't smoke at all, anything, so I don't know. I just know that people are doing it. Is it something that you've done before?
You know, it just adds to the what is hemp, what is marijuana conversation.
And that is what we're here to talk about,
exactly
Eric.
It.
All right, let's start with this first, but to give people an idea of what you do, because this is a great job title. Director of Hemp Affairs for the National Cannabis Chamber. What are your job responsibilities in that capacity?
You know, cannabis to me includes both hemp and marijuana.
Okay.
So what the National Cannabis Chamber of Commerce provides to people is dealing with the marijuana folks and dealing with the hemp folks as well. Chambers of Commerce have operated successfully in our country for decades, right? Providing business owners exactly what they need. Business connections, networking, resources, knowledge transfers.
Sure.
Now that we have our own industry, there's great groups out there that are doing the advocacy and the legislation. And now that there's operating business owners in this space, how does this dispensary owner connect with this ancillary business owner? Now that this is becoming a national arena, how do we connect an ancillary business owner, maybe in Washington, to a grower or cultivator manufacturer here in Colorado? And being able to provide a space to where we can have different chapters across the country. Puerto Rico, Arizona are some of the newest chapters to come on board, and soon enough it will be a household name. Just another, it's the Chamber of Commerce. Where do business owners go when they're new in town?
Right.
Chambers of Commerce.
To the metro, yeah, to the chamber. So does that mean that you are connecting people who are members of your chamber?
Education, connections, building out the infrastructure, especially with hemp. It's difficult. When people want to come into hemp, I say, do you really want to? Because it's almost easier playing on the marijuana side. When you grow that crop, you probably know who's going to buy it. With hemp, if you grow a crop, there's all the infrastructure, and although hemp has many thousands of uses, how do we process this component, and how do we tie those manufacturers, those buyers into this marketplace, which goes outside the realm of just the cannabis arena about the dispensary model, and to now we're dealing with oil and gas companies using the inside of the hemp plant to clean up oil spills, to actually plug out the fracking holes as they dig the wells there. Now we're talking about hempcrete homes and being able to grow a couple acres and being able to build a 3-bedroom household right on that plot where you grew the hemp. And that's fascinating.
And you said hempcrete, almost like it's a substitute for concrete or something like that?
Yes, it's becoming a thing. So hempcrete, it's a mix between the whole hemp plant. You can chop it or you can separate it out and get the inner woody core. Once that's all chopped, just mix it with lime, a little water, maybe some sand, and start building.
Is it an insulant as well? Is it
flame, fire, like flame retardant, flood retardant, pest retardant, mold retardant? You know, when the Colorado mountains got hit so hard a couple of years ago with all the fires and the floods we had.
Seemingly every year.
Seemingly
but yeah,
everywhere.
There was a couple bad years there in our recent history.
Well, soon enough, maybe hempcrete can be an answer to that. To be able to keep a structure sound after a natural disaster happens.
Well, do you find that your education component of your job is even more serious because we're coming out of an era of misunderstanding, and so there's still a stigma and there's still a whole lot of misunderstanding even when it comes to hemp?
Yeah. You know, if we were to go 2 hours due east of this office, do not say hemp at all when you get across the Kansas border.
Sure.
You know, obviously Kansas is our next door neighbor, and they're just a little more regressive than our cannabis laws are here. Even a crop that grew feral, volunteer throughout the Midwest for 60, 70 years now is growing in Kansas, next to the lakes, next to the railroad tracks, in between the rural fields, even in government, national, federal parks, and it's growing there. But yet they do not allow the cultivation. The governor believes it'll open up the door to marijuana legalization. And so have we got away from the hemp is different than marijuana? We have in about half of the states. I'd like to be confident in that. However, I have a conversation with someone in downtown Denver, and they say, oh, hemp, that's the marijuana stuff, right?
You're like, it's like, in a way.
It's like, this is Denver, Colorado. Come on, get an education here.
Center of the free world. Well, this next question directly addresses that, because separate from your duties with the NCCC, you're also facilitating nearly 1,000 acres of hemp cultivation in 3 different states. Yes. So, Eric, tell us what states are getting hemp right and what states are getting it wrong.
So as a Colorado native, I'm very happy that Colorado is truly leading the way in hemp production in just all cannabis aspects.
Are we really leading the way in hemp production, like more so than Kentucky, home of Rand Paul? And oh, really? Okay.
We are forging the way, because when Amendment 64 passed, it allowed for industrial hemp cultivation, which blew open the doors for a commercial market. You can go down to the office right now at the Ag Department, pay $500 and $5 per acre, and be able to grow hemp. It's that simple. In Kentucky, however, it's operating through the federal Farm Bill Research and Development Guidelines, where it has to go through a university or a state Department of Agriculture. And so there's a lot more paperwork, a lot more rigid guidelines. When Colorado got going, we were able to blow open the doors for it. So I personally grew hemp on my family's property outside of Boulder County a couple years ago, moved into greenhouses, did some wholesale CBD production. Even remember harvesting a hemp crop with chainsaws last year. And that's awesome. That's not sustainable at all.
I was going to say.
No. And so we have a very robust CBD market here, but that's not what I want to talk about. It's the other states that are getting it right, like Nevada, for instance. Nevada, this is going to be the first year Nevada will have hemp growing in the state legally. And so there's only a handful of people wanting to get hemp growing there. North Dakota is a very similar state. They just came out with their permits. So North Dakota and Nevada are going to be the first, this summer is going to be the first states that they can grow hemp. So they're getting it right. Minnesota is coming along. But the story goes back to 1940, early 40s, when the government subsidized hemp for the Hemp for Victory campaign, which I'm sure many of the listeners are familiar with.
Oh, yeah.
So what actually happened there was in Kentucky, they grew all the seed. So all hemp was grown almost corner to corner in Kentucky. And because the soil and just the region and how robust it was, they grew a lot of hemp. They separated that seed, they cleaned that seed, they bagged that seed, and they drove that seed all over the Midwest. And that's what my great-granddad grew on the farm in Nebraska. That's, you know, and that's why you have so many feral hemp plants all throughout the Midwest. Well, all that seed was grown in Kentucky. And so Kentucky, it's born in their blood, true to their culture. They are hemp. And so is there some friendly business competition happening between the two states? Absolutely. More so is there collaboration happening between the two states? Yes. Are some northeastern states coming on board more slowly through research programs like we're seeing in New York? However, for the next few years out, Nevada, Colorado, Oregon soon enough will become some of the more robust hemp states.
Well, let's talk about that bureaucracy, because I get the impression from the tone of your voice like Colorado's getting it right because you can go down to the Department of Ag, make it happen, whereas if you wanted to do the same thing in Kentucky, you would need certain research licenses. Is that unnecessary bureaucracy at this point, given what we know about hemp?
Yes. Yeah.
Because to be considered hemp, it has to be below a certain minuscule percentage of psychoactive THC, right? So,
right. Well, it's like why Minnesota only has a couple people actually producing hemp this year, even though they are allowed to do so. Because all the farmers are like, why do we need to research this? It's been growing in our fields for years and years. I don't know why. What are we going to research? What aspects of it? Can we get the seed and can we start growing? It's a weed. You throw the seed in the ground, up pops a 6 to 10 foot plant. It's amazing. Now comes the technology and all the other aspects into how do we do that. If the ag departments were to be able to sit down and have a meeting with the Office of Economic Developments for the state, they could really get some more robust programs going, more grant applications going for processors who want to get involved. You know, right now, all the hemp that's grown in Canada, it goes, the top of it, the seed goes for food, the bottom stalk gets burned, which is used for so many thousands of different uses, but most of it gets burned. What doesn't get burned in the field gets baled and shipped to China for processing, and then gets shipped back for distribution.
Right. And you know, you never quite know the quality of the processing.
Coming from
Patrick
China,
and I
no,
talking about
absolutely.
extraction earlier. So yeah.
I have a question. You know, down in Oregon, so they recently passed the laws to allow industrial hemp, and they actually gave out a couple of licenses, and then they pulled the licenses back because they didn't think about the marijuana grows that for smoking or for recreational medical use next door, and so there was a real controversy of cross-pollination. So do you see that as being a major issue moving forward with the hemp industry?
There's 800 acres in Mendocino that my team has access to, and someone said, why don't you grow hemp on it? And I said, absolutely not. I will not go into a place that has such a robust tradition in marijuana and start to grow a bunch of male cannabis plants around there. Now that our industries do exist, we do have to learn how we can coexist to one another, but how we have to respect the space. Because in Southern Oregon, those great outdoor marijuana growers, tried and true in their culture, although hemp is great, it can be disruptive, not grown in the right growing regions.
Yeah, and we actually have one of our columnists at the Post, Susan Squibb, who I know you know, writes a column for us, and somebody asked that same question, and she talked to a bunch of people who said, yeah, it's something that we need to be cognizant of. Right now, it's an unusual situation in Colorado where mostly only indoor cannabis cultivation is legal. No, it's a different situation out there.
To go back to that question, a lot of some of the whispers were, out of those original licenses that were given, 9 out of the, I think, 11 producers wanted to go into CBD production. Oh man, those 3 letters, right? CBD production. You can maybe tick off some of the marijuana guys that might want to be able to provide that through their dispensary system, just as Vermont, although they have a commercial hemp program up there, they are not allowed to produce CBD. That was strictly given to the rights of the marijuana cultivators. So what happens when someone wants to grow some hemp and they can extract it using very similar technology and sell it into a dispensary system that's not regulated by the marijuana system for the state. And so it was a lot of, oh, didn't know this was going to happen. Let's just put a pause on this. Versus you go to states like North Dakota and they'll deny your application if you say you're going to do anything with CBD research.
CBD, 3 letters that are very controversial to this day, as the FDA can attest to in the last couple months. I do want to bring Patrick back into the conversation, especially since you guys both work in hemp and cannabis in multiple states. You know I get these letters every week, if not multiple times a week, but hey, I'm new, I'm passionate, I have ideas, I want to work in this industry, what should I do right now? Asking me for advice like I know what they should do right now. I could tell them maybe about journalism school or different things, but Patrick, let's start with you. If you're giving advice to that person who's reaching out, one piece of advice, they want to get involved, what is it?
One piece of advice would be to follow your dream. If you have a passion about something and you can develop a product that is true to your values and who you are, you're going to be able to define that product as a brand or as something unique to you. The other thing is hold on. You're going to go through some rough times like any business does, but the potential growth in this industry is really beyond comprehension. I'm giving a presentation at the Marijuana Business Conference in Florida next week.
Sure.
And I'm sharing some of the research we did when we first started Zoots. And you look out there 7 years, and as more states legalize, the potential growth for hemp-based products, for CBD products, for THC-based products is just astronomical. And the industry will be a combination of big players, there will be national brands, and there will be a robust microbrew type of industry that will never go away.
The crafts,
The craft scene. And if you have a passion for that craft, if you have a passion to create a national product, go after it. Follow your dreams.
So Eric, we got follow your dreams and stay at it. What's your advice to these people coming up, young and old, who want a change and want to become a part of this industry?
Sacrifice a lot. Maybe there may be some family morals involved. Maybe you left a job to pursue a dream. Maybe you got fired from a job and then told, you can tell yourself, I'm going to do this, and then start picking up the phone. My advice to people I work with is offer to buy someone a cup of coffee. Sit down with them for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes. People eat lunch. People will drink a cup of coffee. Ask what their story was. Ask how they can be of support to them. Go after the biggest players in this industry and make friends with them. That's how you can get to the top in a very, very new industry.
That's a good point. We had some of the guys from Canopy Boulder on the show a couple months ago, and they were talking about the importance of investing in people, not necessarily products. You find the people you like, I want to work with you, I'm going to invest in you. And really it's like you have to network. You absolutely have to get out there and push. They throw happy hours at Canopy Boulder, which is a cannabis accelerator program if you're unfamiliar with it. But and if the current class of young entrepreneurs aren't necessarily getting out and walking across that patio to talk to the executive, ganjapreneur, whoever it might be, it's like, give them a nudge, get over there right now, because you're going to learn something from that person. That's right. You're going to gain something from that person. So
that's absolutely true. And generally speaking, as a whole, people in the industry are very open about sharing. It's a great industry to be involved in.
That's true. Sharing is caring, Patrick. All right, all right, gentlemen, it is time to jump into the pot quiz. Okay. So we are testing you on your current event knowledge in this space. If you get the question right, point, obviously, and if you don't, then your opponent has the opportunity for the steals. So here we are, Patrick versus Eric. Patrick, we're starting with you.
Okay.
All right.
I'm up.
What Canadian city is threatening this week to crack down on medical marijuana dispensaries because the storefronts, quote, are not what the federal government envisioned?
Toronto.
Well done. Wow, there was no hesitance there. That was okay.
Tough competition.
You've clearly been reading your Pacific Northwest / Canadian news services.
Hey.
Hey. All right, Eric. What U.S. state this week legislatively voted down its historic cannabis legalization plan?
Voted down the cannabis legalization plan was, oh God, it was the Northeast state there. If I say New England, does that count?
I don't think so.
You don't think
Even
so?
though the Patriots are named after New England.
You know, God, just to take a wild guess, was it New Hampshire?
It is not.
Oh, God.
Back to Patrick for the steal.
Yeah, this is something I'm going to have to grasp at. Is it Maine?
It is not.
Oh,
There we
man.
go.
Okay, so I don't feel as bad.
The key word there is legislatively voted down. And that would be Vermont.
New England.
And since we taped the show on a Tuesday, this just happened today. So
Okay.
no shame in not having spent your day in front of a computer like I did. So
That sucks.
all right, back to Patrick. This young gentleman made some news in the last couple weeks. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Laramie Tunsil is the offensive tackle who lost millions of dollars and multiple draft placements after a video of him smoking weed from a gas mask bong was leaked right as the NFL draft began and his draft position fell. What college did he play for?
Oh, what college did he play for?
He was so ready with the Dolphins.
Oh, man. Mississippi State.
Oh, no. That's very close, though. It's so close. Oh, it's
You're
so
going to give me
close.
half a point?
We'll see. What does Eric have to say about this?
God, is it Ole Miss? Or is that one of the same?
Is Ole Miss the same as University of Mississippi? I think it is, isn't it?
Ole Miss is the university.
Okay.
Mississippi State's the other one.
Okay.
Gotcha.
All
Okay.
right.
So technically Eric got it, but then I also gave him a hell of a hint when I was like,
that's okay.
oh,
But they have
Mississippi
the one-
State's so close.
They have the one federal marijuana program there.
I
though.
know.
It has to be like a
Yeah,
pass
they can't
card
keep
something.
up with anything. That's right.
Legal weed grown in Mississippi for days and decades. All right, we'll give you both a half. We'll give you a half point for that,
Half a point.
Patrick.
Yeah.
Okay,
Done.
that was very close. All right, and back to Eric for the final question of the quiz. All right, you ready?
Yes.
With the words, quote, "Creator, we ask you for your blessings upon our people," Oregon celebrated what interesting first last week in Warm Springs, Oregon? So this is a first for the state.
The Native American tribe pushing forward with their cannabis opportunities.
There you
that they're
go.
doing
That's
there.
it. Yeah.
Yes. So
Technically, first tribal-run marijuana cultivation, but yeah, I believe it's the first tribal-run marijuana business in Oregon too.
and there's a good handful of Coloradans that are good guys working that deal out, and I couldn't be prouder to see the news, to see what those guys have accomplished in the past year and a half.
Well, to see where we've come,
There's
right?
been a lot to that little blurb on the news, and it's one for history, that's for sure.
Well, especially since tribes in other states, other non-legal states, have attempted to use that federal loophole opened up by the president and had to destroy their plants because of the threat of looming federal raids. And to see it succeed and to see a native people be able to cultivate this plant is pretty special.
There's a big opportunity there between the cultivation on the reservation versus the dispensing on the reservation, and Warm Springs is definitely pioneering a new model for tribes to follow.
Ah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, guys, oh, excuse me. Eric, Patrick, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Lovely to have you back here in Denver. Most importantly, thank you to you all for watching and listening. Please give us a review on iTunes. You think, it doesn't mean anything, but it means everything. I'm joined by producers Vince, Katie, and Pat. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Dude, you guys did well.
Great.
I'm allowed to lose, I choose to win, I'm all in, I'm calling any posse you'll be raising at the end, I say it again, ain't afraid to get in, I be going for the jackpot with aces in my hand, I'm raw.